Wait for it. There we go. We are live. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the Next Play podcast. My name is not Richie Contartesi. My name is Zach Carlin, head coach over here at Next Play. And I'm joined again by a return guest, and that I am now a big fan of, Natalie Berry. Natalie, how are you doing today?
Doing all right, thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful. So last time I actually just listened to I've listened to it twice now, actually, your last podcast with Richie. It's very unique. I talked to a lot of insurance agents, agency owners, leaders in the space. You do things quite differently than a lot of them do. You like to get face to face. You like to do things, you like to go and do events.
Yeah.
You like to get in front of people. You don't like having your people stuck behind a desk all the time, cold calling leads that you had purchased um, and getting out there and being more engaged. I love it. I absolutely love that. So really quickly, I know you guys talked about it last time, but do you mind kind of reflecting a little bit on how you guys generate business?
Yeah. Basically, my team is the same as me. We don't like sitting at a desk all the time. So, what we have done is set up a lot of events to where we can go out, get into the communities, and get face to face with people to get their information to then quote them. And that's been one of our main acquisitions, business acquisitions, since I opened my agency. Then COVID came along and events got canceled everywhere. So, just like everyone else, we had to adapt. We switched over to the online stuff. And now it has been a struggle switching back to events and getting back out there, getting our calendar full again. So that's kind of where we're at right now is how do we get back to where we were at?
Understood. Yeah, it's tough in a lot of spaces getting back to where you were, especially in that face-to-face instance, right? So is that how you started initially getting your acquisition process? Was it the events? Was that you just started there, or did you start cold calling, going that route, and then move into the events, or how did you kind of get into that? Because you were with Hilton before, right?
I see when you sit down with your recruiters to open up your own agency, you go through an entire business plan, of course, and you write out your business
Oh,
plan. And a big part of that is how are you going to bring in your business? Here's what we do. Which avenues do you want? And as a newbie agent, they have you pick your main three, identify them, write up what you're going to do and how you're going to work them. Events was my number one from day one because I didn't want to do any cold calling. I didn't want to hire people that just wanted to sit at a desk and cold call. And so we kind of started off with that. Looking at apartments in the area is really where we started. We're in the middle of one of the biggest cities.
mhm.
There's a few apartment complexes here. So
In
we just
Houston.
started going to the apartment complexes and meeting with all of them. Yeah.
I love it. So when you're looking for, like
And
you
then we
said,
kind of just took it from there.
I love it. I love that. And that's tough to do because that's uncomfortable for a lot of people. So when you started building your team, when you started bringing people on, what kind of attributes, what do you look for when you're bringing people on your team? Because the way that you go about your acquisition process is a lot different. Obviously, having to be face to face, much more personable, much more.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to talk face to face with a lot of different types of people. You can't really hide behind a desk. So what do you look for? What are kind of the main attributes you look for when you are looking for people to join your team?
It has to be obviously somebody that can talk to a stranger, somebody that has high energy. I think we all know somebody in our lives that we say can talk to a wall. Those are my favorite type of people. If you can
Yeah.
literally talk to anybody, especially maybe a stranger that doesn't want to talk back to you, and you're able to make them feel comfortable and start that conversation, that's a good thing. But you also need people who are high energy and loud because at a lot of the events that we're out there, for an example, if we're at like a farmer's market on a Saturday, we just have a table or a booth or a tent that is in line with 10 others, right?
Yeah.
So we need somebody that is going to attract the crowd over to our table or our booth to talk to them and kind of draw them in that manner.
Yeah, it's very different. It's much different than cold calling. So how do you look for those attributes? Like what do you look for initially? Because it can be tough if you're just going through, whether it's a resume process or um, it's hard to get people in
Mm-hmm.
that space to see really how they are and how they would interact. Can they talk to the wall? Can they pull things out of people in person that maybe others couldn't? How do you go about looking for that? Like what is the interview process like to find those types?
So normally I am a baptized by fire type of person. So I just throw them into the event and see how they do a lot of
Mm,
the time. But as far as the interview process, I kind of go through the same type of interview process that I do a salesperson. And people can interview very well, right? We all know there's professional interviewers out there that can fool you, but the way that somebody is interacting with me when I'm asking them questions, if they're engaging, if they're asking back, I'm looking at their eye contact, and their body language as well to see right away, yes, I think this person is someone who can approach customers and approach people at a park, or there's no chance that person's going to walk up to a stranger.
yeah,
You can usually tell one way or the other. And then it's just a matter of training them how to do that
yeah.
appropriately when they're actually out there, like in the field, so to
Yeah,
say.
absolutely. Because they're the ones that are at the events with you. You don't necessarily do events alone, right?
I try not to. It's a lot of work to do an event yourself. I've
A
done it,
lot.
but I usually
Mm,
like to have a team of two or three of my team. Yeah,
yeah. No, absolutely. You'd have to.
it's good to have.
Yeah, absolutely. No, when it comes to interview processes, this is it's very specific role, especially for you. It is for any sales organization, right? It's what you're selling and how you're selling. It's a very specific role that you're looking for. But with that, you'd almost need to go like an unconventional interview style. Like do they show up for an interview or let's say the interview would normally be on Zoom, like let's go out for dinner, let's go out for a walk down the park, let's go to the dry cleaners and do the interview, get them out of their comfort zone, like you said, because a lot of people are professional interviewers. If they're on the other side of a
Mhm.
screen, they're very good at answering a certain type of question, right? But if you can get them out and challenge them a little bit, and I love what you
Absolutely.
said about 100%, and I love what you said about um, looking at their eye contact, what's their posture like, are they challenging me with questions, don't necessarily just hear the answers to the questions that you're asking, but you're looking at all these other things. So I love that. I love that. So how many when you first started, you're 9 years in now, at what point in your career did you start to really like, I need to build my team, I need to hire people full time?
I would say day one, I tried hiring as many as I could. And then for events, it was kind of an on call thing. So I used my connections at the University of Houston and people at Hilton that were still working events who I knew may need to pick up extra shifts or just pick up extra money here and there. And so I worked with those organizations to give them that opportunity. And then it filled my need because I don't really need all of those people in the office working every day. I just need the manpower during the events.
I got it. So how many do you have a separate team of, okay, I have a team that does events and then I have a team that's in the office, or at this point is it, or do they do both?
At this point, they do both, and that's in large part because of COVID with everything
Mm,
canceling. So that's kind of what we are ramping back up to get to. This right now, two are sales, two is service, or sorry, one is service, and they all enjoy getting out of the office and going and talking to people. The sales team know if they're there on the weekend or a night event, they're going to get to meet people, and then that's going to just help them be able to close that business when they call them on Monday and say, "Hey, I met you Saturday. I'm going to go ahead and do that quote for you." And they will give you all their information over the phone because they know who you are. You're not just a name calling them or just another annoying bot call that they're ignoring, they're expecting your call. They know your name, they know your voice.
mm.
So it's a lot warmer, obviously. It works out really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you go on doing events to COVID hitting, then all of a sudden they're in the office. how did you handle that transition, and how did that affect them and their performance, and how did you overcome that?
I think for a little while with COVID, we actually would do walkabouts and we would get out of the office and literally go walk around just to get
Love
away
it.
from the desks. So not all of us are ADD here, of course. We do have some
Hmm.
people who enjoy sitting at the desk all day, but
Hmm.
they also like the sunshine. And when the rain isn't here in Houston, we'll get out and go. But a lot of it is just breaking up the day too and stay focused because you can't obviously just go in sales for 8 hours every single day, every day of the year. I don't expect that. They do a good job of staying busy, obviously, but being able to break it down and say, okay, today for this amount of time, we're focusing on these people that we're calling. And if we've had an event, we'll have what I call like power hours, where for 2 hours we say, okay, let's hit the phones, let's call the people we met. And then we have a little competition in the office of, who can get it, who can't. And we make it fun. I also have little bells and ringers at their desks.
Yeah.
So as a sales team, if we are getting somebody on the phone, we're able to quote them and then we close it, we hit the bell. And so it just kind of creates that environment of excitement for a little while. And you only do it for a short burst. I usually do it, like I said, for 2 hours just to it,
Mhm.
get you out of the mundane, I guess.
I love that. I love that because you're right. You can't do that for 8 hours because then they end up. If you say, I want you to cold call for 8 hours, a lot of times they'll do it for 45 minutes, realize they have 7 hours left, and they're like, oh, I don't want to do this for 7 hours. And then they do. They're really only doing 2 hours of work anyways in the 8 hour period. But I love how you're breaking it up like
Yeah.
that and challenging them and making it fun and engaging. That's so important. It's so important for a lot of sales, a lot of different industries in the sales profession, right? So that's really cool. Is there any other
Mm-hmm.
what other kind of challenges did you give them? Did you like play games? Did you was there prizes? Kind of how did you what else did you do? Was there any other structure to that?
Not really yet. I need to do it more for them, and I'm sure they're going to be watching this at some point and agreeing with me.
Yeah.
But just coming up with new ideas, and I try to listen to them as well. Of like, okay, what's motivating you guys? What do you want to do? And just kind of try to listen to your team. I think as agents, a lot of the time we get so excited with all these ideas that we have, and we roll
Yeah.
them out and spit them out at a team, and we're like, okay, cool, that worked, and then we go and move on to the next one. But we need
Yeah.
to take time to ask our team, like, hey, did you like that? Did you enjoy it? Did it motivate you? Okay, no, then what do we need to do? What shakes it up, or what's going to excite you about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why tracking and measuring that kind of stuff, even with the games and challenges you put out to your team is important. You can say, oh, we increased our premium by 5% when we played this game. You can even do that. So let's stick with that for a little bit until we see it drop, then we can try something else. I love that. I love that a lot. So as
Yeah.
far as your team, obviously you've been doing this for a long time, and your current team, have they been with you for quite a while now, or is there a little bit of turnover?
There's a bit of a mix. So my newest is about a year and a half right now. Then we have 4 years we just celebrated and 6 years that we just celebrated.
That's amazing. That's a
Yeah.
year and a half is that's really good. So what is your secret to retaining your sales reps? Because I know again, I talk to a lot of individuals in your role, and they're even with small teams, sometimes that is an issue, right? Of the turnover, keeping
Hmm.
good talent or even just finding and sourcing good talent. So what's your secret to having, a 6, 4, and a year and a half tenure sales rep?
I don't think there really is a secret. I mean, a lot of it is luck of finding the right people. And I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
have that my first, second year, right? I was getting that turnover my first, second year. I think first year of agency, I probably had 20 people, come and go and going
Yeah.
through because you're trying to get it going. But I think if you asked them, the reason that they are still here is that I do try to do a good job of listening to what they want. I don't want this to be a job every day that they're just like coming here 9 to 5 and can't wait to leave. I want to make sure that it's somewhere that they want to go to, and they're motivated and they're excited about what they're doing every day. So
Yeah.
listening to them honestly is the best, probably the only secret that I would have, which isn't really a secret.
You'd be surprised. I think a lot of people need to hear that. Is taking what their feelings, what their ideas. It's 100% their ideas, feelings, all that kind of stuff into consideration when you're making decisions. I absolutely love that, and obviously developing them is super important. And they've been with you for so long, so obviously you're doing a very good
Yeah.
job in that department. So, what is kind of your coaching development process with your reps, whether they're new or tenured?
Mm-hmm. It's really just spending time with them on where they want to focus. So one of the things that I love about our agency is we have 100 different products and services and accounts that we can offer to our customers. So then the team, they get to have, like, homeowners and auto insurance is our base and everybody has to sell it. But then past that, I let them choose what they're interested in, what they want to focus on. So for example, Melody, who's been with me for 4 years now, she is getting into the commercial side of it. She's very interested in it. It's one of her personal goals. So we're taking time to meet and go over the training that she needs, practice those conversations. We get out of the office. I go with her and we try to talk to different business owners and get in the door with them, and then just practice all of that to develop her to be able to do it on her own eventually. And then it offers more challenges for her too, because doing the same job for 4 years for anybody, you're going to get bored of it eventually. It's going to
Yeah.
get old. It's good. They need new focus every now and then, especially with
Um,
salespeople.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially when they feel like they're doing the same thing over and over again. I love that. So what is that? So you said that you go out with her, you do the trainings with her, you coach her. What does that look like? Do you have a framework that you follow, or since you do have a smaller team, do you just spend the time as needed
Yeah.
with them? How does that kind of look? Obviously, I love how you're letting them pick what they want to do, so now they're passionate about it. So now what's kind of the next steps
Mm-hmm.
to push them forward?
I think for sales team, it's setting those goals. And even for my service team, Cindy, who's been here for 6 years now, she has found that she has a sales side to her that she didn't know was there before. So she's starting to set her own sales goals and go after those as well, and talk to people about their financial services like life insurance, asking about their benefits through work. And that can come from an easy conversation of somebody calling in to make a payment or switch out their cars or just ask a question right now. And so she has gotten really good at, hey, while I have you on the phone, let me ask you a couple questions and see if there's any other needs there, if there's anything that she can talk to them about, and setting different goals for them, having what they want to achieve and how they want to be rewarded, I think is very important,
Mm,
because some people, everybody assumes salespeople like money, and that is not always true. Sometimes they just want their Friday afternoon off early, and I can give that, and it doesn't cost me much more, right? So my team also, for the most part, like, enjoys being together. We did just hire somebody brand new last week that's studying for their license right now and will hopefully be coming on board. But we will then have 5 women in our office. This summer college is coming in, so then we'll have 6 women in the office. So
uh-oh. I love
the
it.
fact that they do like working together, they like hanging out together, is a good thing, and keeping that going is important. So last year they met the goals that we had set forth, and one of their promotions they were working towards was a cruise this year. So in a couple weeks, we're all going on a cruise together. And the fact that we can actually do that because they met the goals they needed to, and they want to hang out with each other on vacation versus saying, yeah, I just want a week off by myself as my reward. It means a lot to me that they enjoy that and they want to be around each other.
Absolutely. And that's a testament to leadership. Because one of the most important things, especially when you're no, you're not that you're just starting out, but you do have a smaller team, is that they're a functional team. They want to be around each other, they want to push each other and challenge each other, and they want to hit a common goal together. So I love how you did that. And I think that's a big missing point with a lot
Mm-hmm.
of these smaller teams is they don't necessarily set team cohesive goals. They set individual goals, like you need to hit this number, we want you to make this much, we want you to be able to afford this
Yeah.
house. But setting those team cohesive goals, that just boosts everybody. They're going to hit their own goals faster because they're pushing each other to hit this goal that they want to hit
Mm-hmm.
together. Right. And I absolutely love that. And another thing that you hit on that I think can't be said enough is not every sales individual has the same motivation. Like, and you're right, so many they just
Mm-hmm.
say, well, I'll just pay them more, right? They should want to work harder because they'll make more money. Well, a lot of people, that's not, of course, they want to make more money. Who doesn't? But that's not necessarily what's going to keep them motivated day in and day out. Banging phones, going to events, setting up, because I'm sure that's a ton of work on a Saturday, setting up events, handing out protein bars at the gym,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sometimes they might just want
Yeah.
recognition. Sometimes they might just want to be heard, right? And sometimes they might just want their Fridays off, right? It's so I absolutely love how you're doing that and you're listening to them. Um, so do you have with your individuals, do you have, let's say, somebody new coming on, what is kind of the onboarding process and how do you kind of get them up to speed quickly? Do you have like a training that you put them through? What's kind of your coaching cadence with them? What does that kind of look like?
It's honestly a mixed bag. I think it's a lot like you hear raising kids. It takes a village a lot of the time. So my
For sure.
my my tactic really has been to get the training that I know they need from me, as well as State Farm and all of our affiliates that we work with have their own, of course, like computer-based stuff that you have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take time with the team members. And the team members are the ones that actually end up teaching them a lot and doing most of the training. I'm not doing most of the training. So for the person that just started with us, she'll be with Cindy, who's our most tenured person, and she will be learning the system and how to handle X, Y, and Z that gets thrown at us with customers, because that
Yeah.
is really one of the weird things I think about insurance agencies is we still have that customer service coming at us all the time. It does
Yeah.
not stop. So it's not just
Mm-hmm.
if you're a salesperson, you only sell, 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 and there's nothing else. I sound like Kramer, but that's
Yeah.
not the only thing that you're doing. You also have
Yeah.
those calls coming in, and so that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of where I start because the customer service is paramount. I am not starting a team and running a sales team to just keep burning my wheels and riding customers and then letting them leave to go to other agencies or other companies. We want to keep those customers, so we really work hard to build relationships with them, and that's been hard in that. There was one thing that I learned from my mom being an agent for 35 years in a small town, getting to know your customers and getting personal with them. So when they leave you or need to leave you for price changes, or they had a bad claim that you had no control over or couldn't do anything about it, it's more like they have to break up with you than they're just switching agencies or switching insurance
Mm-hmm.
companies.
I absolutely love that, and that brings up a really good point because that's one thing that I hear a lot is, and I think that that ties into overcoming just the price. Because when we're doing sales trainings and we're coaching individuals, and especially in the insurance industry, is if they can't beat the
Mm-hmm.
price, they usually don't get the sale. But a lot of times it's because they don't necessarily
Yeah.
see how they can provide a better service. And it sounds like you put a really
Mm-hmm.
big focus on providing a better service, right? So if you can
Yeah. And
provide that service, go ahead.
we have to.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely
We
have to. You
have
have
to
to
do
focus
that
on.
because as a State Farm, with a State Farm, we are captive, right? So I can't just shop my customers around. And if we sold only on price, I probably wouldn't have an agency. We are selling on value because we are selling that relationship that you have directly with a person, with an agent that's going to be there, and being in the area that we are, especially with hurricanes coming through. being able to say, if something happens, I'm going to be here. You have my cell phone number to call. You're not going to be standing in line behind thousands of other people on a 1-800 number waiting for your call to go through.
Mhm.
It's a big difference.
Absolutely. And I think this is going to be a good place to kind of finish off because again, so many of them they can't get past that. So when you get those objections, you and your team get those objections of okay, I'm paying $10 a month cheaper here. I'm just going to stick with them. How do you overcome that objection, and what kind of questions do you ask to get to that point or to overcome that objection, maybe preemptively?
We try to ask them what's important to them other than price. And when you say $10 cheaper, I mean, right now we are talking $50 cheaper, $100 cheaper that we are having to overcome and continue to bring in new customers. And then with renewals and everybody's insurance is going up right now, right? So
Mhm.
even those customers that we have, we're having to essentially resell it to them at their renewal,
Yeah.
so that they don't jump ship and go to somebody for usually more than $50 cheaper, to be honest. So a lot of the things that we do talk about are what happens when you're having a claim and the customer service that you are paying for. We're not talking about the price that you are paying to fit into your monthly budget. We're talking about what are you getting for your money? Is it worth it to you to be spending $50 less a month in hopes that if something happens, you're going to be able to stand in line and wait for somebody to get to you? Or do you want to have direct access to somebody that can be out there? If you get in a car accident, we're going to get you back in your car as fast as we can. We're going to make sure you have a rental, all of that. The homeowner side of it is really where we shine. When we had Harvey come through, and
Oh, yeah.
then most recently in Texas, we had the big freeze that everybody heard
I
about
was there. Yeah.
across the world, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there.
So we had hundreds and thousands of people that couldn't get into a hotel for the night. They couldn't find a place to stay. They may not have the means for that, anyways.
Mm.
I was able to literally drive around. And the magic of that and being able to be on the ground telling them you don't have to wait for an adjuster to come out to your house and look at it, sharing those stories is really where we can bring in more customers, and telling them you're paying this monthly bill every single month. What are you getting for it? This is what I can offer right now, and really just selling the value of it.
I love that. So if you had some advice to these agency owners or other insurance agents that are having issues overcoming just the price, what would be kind of like the main piece of advice that you would give them?
I think you have to sell yourself and your service and set it apart from the 10 other quotes that they just got, especially if you're doing internet leads or you're doing cold calling. Because again, we have a leg up on people because most of the time we've met them in person.
Yeah.
But we do still get internet leads. We do still have like statefarm.com leads that come in. And so they don't know us. We're calling them, and it's kind of the same situation, but getting yourself in a place where you're able to differentiate yourself from the competition, even over the phone, immediately. And we're very like first impressions in our society, right?
Yeah.
It's very quick.
Huge.
You've got the first 5 seconds. If you actually can get them on the phone, then
Yeah.
you're getting somewhere. But
Yeah.
then you have 5 seconds for them to realize, oh, you're different than the last 20 people that called me.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that is like a real number. I think it's around 5 to 7 seconds that you have to get somebody's attention and differentiate yourself before they already made that kind of first impression decision. I think that's
Yeah.
legit. Yeah, absolutely. So, and this is something that it's tough for a lot of the insurance, those that are in sales with the insurance, is how do we get there? What kind of question track can I do?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times when they ask that question, Or like, well, what do you what's important to you outside of just the price for insurance? A lot of times they'll say, no, just the price, right? So it's finding those question tracks and what works best for them to get them to that point. Because then you could also have had some people who would ask, well, your previous insurer, what are some issues that you came up or that had come up in the past, right? And then they're like, everybody loves to talk about the problems that they had, right? So then they're talking all these problems, and you have all this, you have all this ammunition that you can use, right? And I think it's really important what you said is you guys put the service aspect of it in almost ahead of the sales. So when you're saying these things, you truly believe it. And I think that's extremely important, is to really truly believe that you are the better option, whether it's 50, 100, or $10 more a month. And I think that's something that's missing. They don't
Yeah.
necessarily believe, they think, oh, we just sell insurance. It's the same as anybody else, but you have to believe in the service that you're giving. Right. And that's extremely important. I think that's a big missing piece.
Hmm. I would agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And your
absolutely.
team has to believe it too.
That is the most important part. And then relaying that, communicating that to your team, right? Absolutely, 100%. So from there, so overcoming that objection, what's kind of the when you went from doing events, right, to transitioning to not being able to do events. So this is kind of for advice for people that they're hearing this. They're like, oh, I want to try and go do events. I want to get out from cold calling, buying leads. I want to get out and start doing events. What is kind of your advice to them? What's the
Hmm.
first thing they should do? I know that it's different from city to city, but as broad as you can, what's kind of some of your like initial advice for those?
I would say, as a first type of event, to do either a convention or a conference that's coming in where you can buy a table. So, for example, like right now, the home and garden shows are in every big city, every small town. You've got them coming up, especially with summertime and spring.
Yeah.
Being able to call your outlets that you have. So if you have like a civic center in town, or if you have a college that you know they often rent out space for these type of things,
Yeah.
give them a call and try to get on the list of, hey, how much does a table cost? Can I get in here? You'd be surprised at how many little conferences are free. So those are always nice to find. If you look online, look on Eventbrite. In Houston, we have like different websites that show all of the events coming up for the next month. Everywhere has something like that. The smaller the town, the harder that is. But if you look at specific little events, that those are good to start with, at least to get out there and just try it out. And it's not like you're
Mhm.
dropping $1,000 on a table that could be a
Yeah.
bust. And you don't want to do that and put pressure on yourself for your very first event by any means.
Yeah.
Also, look at farmers markets. Those
Ooh,
are
that's good.
great. They will usually allow you to get in there, even if you're not selling goods for the farmers market. A lot of them surprisingly will allow you to go in there, and depending on what products you have, you can say, we're just trying to educate people about health insurance this month, or we want to make sure, like for February, we always do life insurance for love insurance, and we get in there and do a lot of stuff that way. For the summer months, we always look at homeowners, and we try to get in there to like the home and garden shows for that reason, because you're looking at people usually who own houses there that are looking for improvements for the summertime.
Ooh, I love that. I love that advice. So they go on Eventbrite, they go to conventions, they get a booth at a convention. What would you say is kind of the biggest difference? Because obviously, if they're used to cold calling, right, that's a bit of a different conversation than doing that in person, right? What's kind of your suggestion for somebody who's transitioning from banging the phones and having those kind of conversations to having those more in-person, intimate
Mm-hmm.
conversations?
When you're out there talking to people, and this can literally be at the grocery store on a Saturday too, and talking to people about their insurance, like, hey, right now everybody's prices are going up. Everybody is happy to talk about their insurance prices going up and complaining about it. So it's a lot easier, honestly, than it used to be. I talked to somebody in line at my HEB the other day about it. So just being able to ask them when they come up to the table, you're giving away pins or you're giving away koozies, whatever it is, and saying, hey, who do you have your insurance with? How much did your price go up lately? 9 out of 10 people are going to tell you that it went up. If you get that one that went down, then that's good. And say, let's see if we can look and get you an even better price than that if it went down.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean you can't quote them. So what we normally do is take their information. There's a lot of ways you can do that now. Having a digital iPad that allows people to just put in
Mhm.
their basic information. And then if you
Mhm.
have, if you're using Salesforce or you're using a similar program, that can all preload for you. So it takes away a lot of the work Monday morning. And so we try to do that. We always have the backup, like fill out your name and your email and your phone
Yeah.
number type of thing. And we don't require them to fill those out to get whatever freebie we're giving away. The
Yeah.
biggest reason that I don't do that is then they will give you fake information just to get the freebie. And that
Yeah.
is a waste
Mhm.
of your time completely. So don't require that unless you have to. There's a lot of rules about like what you can give away, right? So just make sure you're not breaking any rules. You're not doing any like drawings or big winning or lotteries or, that kind of stuff. But we engage with the people there and say, okay, when is the best time for me to call you on Monday? And okay, Monday's not good. Can I call you, Tuesday night? Whatever it is, we kind of try to set that appointment with them in a
Okay.
way. And then we will, if we have time, send them a text message that morning like, hey, so good to meet you on Saturday. I'll give you a call at 5 o'clock tonight. Don't forget. Something simple like that, just to get it back in their head. And if you're able to, also get them to save your number. If
Mhm.
you're out there and you have time, depending on how many people are coming to the table, if you have one of your digital like contact cards, they've got it through Popple, you've got it through LinkedIn has it now. If you can get your information for the office number that you're going to be calling from saved on their phone, that's going to give you way more chance that they're going to answer it,
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't answer phone numbers they don't know, right? So you do have to mention that and set them up for that. And then when we get into the office on Monday, we kind of look through, okay, who are the people on the list from all these leads that we got that we actually interacted with? How many of them are people that we set up a time? Let's get those in. And those are our first priority. Then our second priority is people we talk to, but they're like, yeah, give me a call whenever. We don't know if they
Mhm.
were really serious or not,
Mhm.
but we're going to make sure that we call them first. Then, if we have time left in the day, we start calling on the rest of the people. If they don't answer, we send out text messages. Any agency owner right now that is not using text messages, you're missing out. And I'm going to give you a little tidbit of what we do, what we've started doing is sending out a picture or a meme or something that will get their attention over the generic, like, hey, get your price quote
Yeah.
now, click here. We, even as agents, get those on a regular basis. And
Yeah.
I look
Yeah.
at them and just roll my eye and I'm like, I'm not clicking on a link that a stranger just sent me.
Yeah.
That's never going to work ever.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's working for somebody because they still do it, right? But I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that. So we will like send out a picture of Jake from State Farm looking at his phone, like, just checking to see if you got my call. Haven't heard back from you. Just silly little things. And any agency, regardless of who you're representing, who you're selling, you can make those memes. You can do them of yourself. If you've got somebody in the office that wants to be front and center, take a few pictures of them and send them as a meme. It's pretty easy, but it gets way more responses.
I love that because you're so right. There's so much, we're so over flooded with generic spam type messages that you have to do that to differentiate yourself and either make it
Yeah.
unique or customize it. Like you really have those two choices, right? So I
Mhm.
love the idea of sending them a text message almost right away, maybe the next day, right? Give them some time the next day of just saying, hey, I loved our conversation. I look forward to chatting with you on Monday and helping you with X, Y, and Z, something pertaining to the conversation you had with them, if you remember, right? I love that. Do you at any point has you ever closed anybody or got a new client at an event before, or is it mostly when you schedule them afterwards?
I would say 98% is later in the office. We do have a few events where if we know we're going to have slow time or we have extra people, we will take our computers out there. I even have a little digital printer that's like right here, I'm looking at it, that I'll take out. So if we have that situation, we can print out an ID card for them right on the spot. Depending on the agency and how you have it set up and who you represent, you can also partner with different dealerships. So if you're just like auto and home and you're doing P&C agent, if you can do any events at the dealership, have a digital printer, take everything there. You've got to make sure compliance, right, is where it's at. We've got our own specific rules where we can't take payment on premises in certain areas. So you have to make sure you're following that. But we definitely do make sure that if we have that opportunity and we've got somebody that wants to take 30 minutes out of their Saturday at our table to get a quote right then and there and look over it and say, yeah, go ahead and sign me up. I don't want to ever be like, oh, we can't. I'm going to make sure I have everything there just in case we can. But does it happen very often? No. Usually people are at these events and they're busy and they're enjoying their Saturday or their Friday evening, and they're happy to let you call them later. But it does happen every now and then.
Gotcha. But it's definitely not something I asked that because you get some people who are overexcited and they might start pushing it. They're like, well, why don't we just close them here? But it's not necessarily, we're going to push them away, right? Because they're there for other reasons, or they're there with other people, or they want to get to see the rest of the convention or something else. So don't necessarily push it, but if it happens, it happens. Love it. Awesome. Well, look, Natalie, we could talk for another few hours, I'm sure. Everybody who's watching this, not everybody, be respectful, but she's a wealth of knowledge. She's very successful in the field. I love what you've done with your team, how you structure your team, and how you challenge them and push them. And you have that, it definitely seems like you have a team mentality that pushes each other, challenges each other, and you all have the same vision of where you want to go. And I absolutely love that. I think that's a missing link for a lot of people who do build a team. Everybody has to be going in the same direction, rowing in the same direction. I absolutely love that. So do you have anything else to add before we jump off here to any other advice you can give newer agency owners from here who are looking to build their team and expand?
I would say just look for team members that are going to help you break out of the box as well, that have fresh new ideas or that are willing to try things. If you hire somebody who's not willing to change it up, you're going to get stuck in a rut. So you want somebody that's excited and not afraid to try and something not work out.
I love it. That's great advice. Bring someone on your team that's going to challenge you, not necessarily fall in line, but challenge you as well in the same direction, obviously with the same vision. I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's missing. That's important. But I love it. This has been amazing, Natalie. I love the success that you've had, and I wish you nothing but continued success, which I'm sure you're going to have. But if you have any other questions for Natalie, reach out. Love it. All right. We'll talk to y'all next time.
All right. Thanks so much.